Hi, and welcome back. This week in Level F, we're going to be covering lessons 41 through 44, and you'll need your worksheets 30 through 32, the activities for learning abacus, the math card games book, the basic numbers card deck, the multiplication card deck, and the corners card deck, and your tally sticks. So let's get started with lesson 41. We will be dividing by hundredths and learning how to modify a fraction to make the denominator a whole number. The oral warm-up is a review of dividing by tenths. And remember that while these warm-ups are usually quick and easy, they are very important. So if your child is struggling to answer the questions, you may want to slow down, play more games, and have your child use the abacus and other manipulatives to demonstrate the solutions. Just as we showed 8/4 and 0.8 divided by 0.4, or 8/10 divided by 8/4 on the abacus, we can also demonstrate 8/100ths divided by 4/100ths. So in this case, each bead is worth 100th. And so how many 4/100ths are in 8/100ths? The answer is 2, just like last week, right? It's the same answer as the other problems that we went over last week. So have your child complete the first 2 rows and the question on the worksheet, and then ask how he solved the problems. So take a break from the worksheet for a minute and ask the next question, which is, name some fractions that are equivalent to 1/2. And then you, as the teacher, writes them down, okay? Now you can choose one of those fractions and ask how those numbers actually compare to 1/2. So let's take a look at what that would look like.
Okay, so here we have 1/2. And let's say we just choose one of the fractions, equivalent fractions that your child mentioned. Let's say that it's 3/6, okay? So I want to ask your child, how does the numerator in each fraction compare? Well, they can see that 1 times 3 equals 3, right? So then 2 times 3 equals 6. So as long as both the numerator and the denominator are multiplied by the same number, the new fraction will always be equivalent. So 1/2 does equal 3/6. Okay, let's look at what we do when we're dividing by numbers with decimals. We will want to change the number we are dividing by into a whole number. So for example, let's say we have 0.75 or 75/100ths divided by 0.5 or 5/10, okay? We want to make this number, the denominator, a whole number. What are we going to have to do to make that a 5 instead of 0.5? We need to multiply by 10, right? So if we multiply this by 10 and the 0.75 by 10, we will get 7.5 divided by 5. And then we can go ahead and do the actual division. So 5 goes into 7 one time with 2 left over. 5 goes into 25 5 times. And the decimal point just stays in the same place that it was in the numerator.
Okay, so after your child completes the worksheet, ask the in conclusions questions, and then play subtraction corners with tenths, which is F22.4, and there is a blog or video about it on the Right Start website. Moving on to lesson 42, we will be dividing by decimals and learning how to move decimal points when dividing within the division house. The oral warm-ups are a review of dividing by whole numbers, tenths, and hundredths. We will review the 3 ways that you can write a division problem. So in the fraction form, using the division sign and the division house. And after this review, your child will be able to fill in the table on worksheet 31. For problem number 2, your student is shown how to shift the decimal points over to the right to indicate multiplying by 10 or by 100. And in some cases, a 0 needs to be annexed under the division house. So let's take a look at what that looks like.
Okay, so on worksheet 31, problem number 2, the directions say, when dividing by decimals, multiply both numbers by powers of 10 to make the divisor a whole number, and then show the new decimal points as shown. So let me go ahead through that for you. So here we have 2.55 divided by 0.5. So we just learned in the last lesson that the divisor has to be a whole number. And we know that if we multiply 0.5 times 10, we get 5. So we're going to indicate that we've multiplied by 10 by just moving the decimal point one place to the right, because it's only by 10 that we're multiplying. And we have to do the same thing to this number. Okay, so now our new decimal point is here. All right, so then we can go ahead and proceed. So 25 divided by 5 is 5, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. So my answer is 5.1. Now, in some cases, we'll have to annex that 0. And remember, colloquially, we like to say add a 0 at the end, but that is not correct. And so we want to use the word annex. So here we have 0.9 divided by 0.03. Now we know we're going to have to multiply it by 100 to get this to be 3. It's not 0.3, so we can't multiply by 10. We have to multiply by 100. So we'll indicate that by moving the decimal point. Now we have to multiply 0.9 by 100 as well. So if we only did it by 10, we'd move the decimal point to here. But we're going to have to put it over here and annex that 0. And then we can proceed. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into 0 0 times. And my decimal point is over here. We don't have to put it up on that line, but we know that it's there at the end of the 30.
Okay, so have your child finish the worksheet, and then you ask the in conclusion question, and then play the quotient and remainder game, which is D7 in the Math Card Games book. So for lesson 43, we will be having an assessment review of concepts that have been learned thus far. So this is preparation for the actual assessment in lesson 45. It's like a pretest, and it looks very much like the shorter reviews or quizzes that we've been doing. You will start off with 3 oral questions, and then after your student completes the rest of the assessment, please go over the answers and have him or her correct any mistakes. This is a great time to see what needs to be reviewed and solidified before lesson 45 when you take the actual assessment. So here are the lessons that you need to review if your child has missed any of the questions. Okay, so if your child missed the oral questions, look at lessons 24 and 26 for the first problem, 3 for the second problem, and 20 and 21 for the third problem. In the Write the Answers section, look at lessons 26 for the first problem, 38 for the second problem, and 16 and 38 for the third problem. In the Do the Calculations section, look at lessons 26 for the first problem, 27 for the second problem, 33 for the third problem, and 34 and 35 for the fourth problem. Evaluate the following expressions section. If they missed anything in that, look at lessons 40 for the first problem, 14 through 16, and then 18 and 27 for the second problem, 14 through 16, 18 and 40 for the third problem, 40 for the fourth problem, and then lessons 14, 16, 26, and 27 for the fifth problem. Now that might seem like a lot of lessons, and you don't have to look at all of them, but what you have to do is evaluate what part of that question did my child not understand. So you might not have to go through all of those lessons, but those are the lessons that are covered in that particular problem. So just look for, if they got an exponent wrong, cover the exponents. If they got expressions wrong, like the order of operations, doing parentheses before other things in the equation, then look at the order of operations section, okay? And then for the solve the problem, look at lessons 41. For the rectangle, which rectangle has a greater area and which one has a greater perimeter, look at lesson 38. Okay, for the final lesson this week, it's lesson 44, and it's going to be a review game day. So after the oral warm-ups, you'll be playing 3 games to review for the upcoming assessment. The games are Division War, which is D12 in the math card games book, and it has a variation. The cards with the higher remainder are the ones that win that hand rather than the higher quotient. The second game is top and bottoms corners with hundredths. So we've played it with tenths before, but now we're going to play with hundredths, and that's S11. And then the last game is near 30, and those instructions are in the lesson book. Okay, and that's it for this week. Next time we'll see you for lessons 45 through 48. Bye-bye.